We're very fortunate to have Kamran with us. So Kamran Hedjri, those of you that don't know, is the CEO of a company called PXP Financial. Now, we've all heard of the Stripes of the world, the Addians of the world. PXP is on the acquiring side, but it's got some amazing achievements. So just to give you some headlines, if we just look at the last year, they've processed over 22.7 billion euros. They have over 250 staff in 20 nations, from 20 nationals, 5 locations worldwide. They've got, Black Friday, for example, one of their merchants was doing 70 sales per second. They are the acquirer for the likes of Urban Outfitters, Abercrombie and Finch, Shangri-La, BetMGM, Betwin, Holiday Inn, and even, it's funny because I was in the UK, and I don't know if you guys have been to the Royal Shakespeare Theatre, and it's on the River Thames, and you go there and all the terminals are PXP. The largest theme park in the UK, I'm not from the tourist board, but I'm just letting you know, is something called Chessington World of Adventure, sorry, and all the terminals are PXP. So it's a very successful company, and it's had an interesting journey. So with that to do, what I want to do is, Kamran, could you introduce yourself? But secondly is, I would like to know, how did you end up, in payments, right? And just for the sake of the audience, I was going to ask really nice questions, and I thought, I'll be nice, but then someone said to me, Kamran was your first boss when you joined this industry, and he was so cruel to bring you into payments. Should you be nice to him now? So I totally agreed with him.
I can imagine. So my name is Kamran Hedjri, CEO of the PXP Financial. The journey, the question is, how do I get to this space, right? It's
how does an Iranian,
yeah. So I was born in Iran, in Tehran, and ended up in school in UK. I don't know why, and then somehow I ended up in Vienna at the Technical University of Vienna, and my first job was programming and doing some startups, and somehow, as a young guy, you end up in one channel, and the channel was at the Europay MasterCard back then, right? And it was just by coincidence. There was a job, there were some friends, they said they're doing cool stuff with cards and chip and pin and all those things that they were coming at the time. And I said, yeah, it sounds interesting, I will give it a try. And started, and I got hooked, and that was the start of the journey. And then we did quite a few cool stuff back then. The set, it was called the 3D, it was the predecessor. We started to introduce that to the Austrian market, and got exposed to many different variation of the different payment processing and all those things. But e-commerce was not very big back then, right? It was mid-90s to end 90s, and it started to grow beginning of the 2000s. And 2000, I ended up at a startup company, just IPO'd, called Bet and Win. It was a gambling company. And I was employee number 20, and it was fun. It was fun to start with somebody that's quite fintechy, and it's a comparison to a big bank and a big organization, and we could do cool stuff, work night and day, yeah? End up at the bar, as you remember, the good old nights.
And to the football fans, Bet and Win, you may know as BWin, right? Yeah. So BWin, famous sponsors of AC Milan, Real Madrid, at the time, one of the largest gaming companies in the world. So you were part of that phenomena right from the start.
Yeah, and it was fun. And then the company grew to become 5,000 employees, and we went to 26 different countries. We expanded, and I was the responsible person for the strategy of setting up payment in all the different countries, and build up a cool payment platform, and get licensing and getting the whole bits and bobs that you need in order to be a payment processor, an acquirer, and issuer. So that was the starting point. And being part of the fintech was cool because the decision-taking process was refreshing, because in a big organization like Europay or the bank, you've got multiple layers in order to come to a decision of an investment, and your voice is not heard. But here it was a quick one. Everybody was really entrepreneur, and they were really looking forward to do something cool, and it was a journey that I really don't want to miss, and it was an amazing time back beginning of 2000.
And what was it like, being part of BWin, because you were in that payments part that kind of got separated per se.
Yeah.
But what was it like being part of BWin, especially when it merged with a really large gaming company called Party Gaming? And obviously you also had a clash of cultures there.
Yeah, I think it was I wouldn't call it always cool, because it was also very challenging, because the regulatory environment was changing. At the beginning of 2002, 2007, 8, 9, the regulatory environment was not quite defined. So anything that you wanted to do in the payment space, it was like, am I going to be allowed to do this or not? Do I need to find a solution? So you had to be very creative and innovative about the ways you're setting up things. Obviously nothing doing illegal, but start to use the framework that is given to you and find out solutions. And that gave us a lot of innovative and thinking to set up. We knew that there are some of the solutions that we are putting in place, they're going to have an expiry date of 6 months, 7 months, 11 months, or whatever that is. And then we need to find another innovative, alternative way of dealing with the situation. So that was a good training and getting us to the shape. And obviously the two companies came together and it was chaos, right? So everybody was trying to do whatever they wanted to do, and your voice within the organization, it got even bigger, like 7,000, 8,000 people. And something happened, was the situation in US. So one of the companies was very big in US, and then overnight they lost 80% of their revenue, right? And now you had to deal with the situation, how actually you come up with a defensive strategy in order to make sure that you can protect the revenue streams. And that gave us the thinking, we need to own the ecosystem. What do we mean by ecosystem? We need to be an acquirer, we need to be an issuer, we need to be a gateway, we need to bring all these different elements together so that we can actually use the whole system and the regulatory environment to build up this system. And we were lucky, because that back then the payment service directive was there, the first one, right? And enabled a fintech to do similar things to what the bank is doing. And regulation is a friend, right? It could be a friend, and it should be a friend, but it's also challenging. And that gave us the opportunity to set all those things up.
I must confess that I first learned what a sealed warrant is after working in the gaming industry. And those of you that don't know, a sealed warrant is where your name could be on some list somewhere, but they don't know about it till you enter the country. So, you might be, I don't know, flying to the West Indies, and for some reason the flight's diverted to the US, and as far as everyone's concerned, you have nothing to worry about, but you land, they open the sealed warrant, and then you get arrested. So it was, I know that there was some stories where management, I'm not talking about in PXP, but
yeah,
some of the wider group, where people had to leave the country at night and go to Canada just because they weren't sure what was going to happen.
I think it was a challenging, and it was not quite defined, and I'm happy that now we went away from that unregulated situation on the gambling space to a very regulated, is clear, white and black, and people have got the guidance where to do it.
So just for the sake of everybody, in terms of, obviously that's where you started, but you now do, obviously you do different sectors, and you're no longer part of that group, but what happened on the journey?
Yeah, I think what was there, that we were purely e-commerce and purely gambling focused. We did other sectors, but very small, like university, education, a little bit of travel. But then we said, okay, we need to expand our channels, right? We want to go in store, and we want to also go beyond what gambling is, and somebody who can do retail and hospitality. So we found a company called PXP back then, right? And we went into the transaction discussion, and we acquired them back then. And overnight, After the transaction, we enhanced our sectors by retail, hospitality, cruise ships, and then we were also at the same time in the stores, and gave us to provide an end-to-end solution for the omnichannel gateway and acquiring. Which was one, yeah.
So look, I think that obviously people are interested in hearing what happened with PXP, but what I want to ask you is, how do you go about building your team out? Like, you joined a company that was, you were 20th or in the company grew to 4,000, then you actually are running the whole payments division and then running the company. How do you go about choosing people that you want to be in your C-level, and what advice do you have for people that are looking to jump up a grade, or maybe have that position at next C-level position?
I think I went through an evolution of choosing the people that needs to be. At the beginning, they need to be crazy about that space. Look at you, right? You work night and day, and you joined us, and it's not fun, because if you don't love it, right, and if you don't really love what you do, you cannot spend that much time on it, and you're not actually enjoying it. So that's not really the space for you. But over years, right, you cannot expect everybody, to be really passionately in love with the space, right? But you need to have some basic hygiene factors, right? Integrity, honesty, and all those, just pure good people. They need to be from the character, something fitting, right? Somebody who actually understands the team and can work within a team. And that's, for me, is a very, very important factor, because one bad apple can really ruin, and for me, is selecting the right person to come and join us is a key factor, right? And hence, we are very meticulous about the stages that we go through, and select the people who can join and who can't, right? And we do this kind of a Clifton strength analysis on the test, and is a Gallup, right? So that we do some kind of a we try to identify the strength points of the people, because one of the things also that we learned, never focus on the weakness of the people, focus on their strength, right? It's a waste of time trying to actually make the weakness go away, because that's given, right? Try to actually build and integrate their strength into the organization, and that will help you. And general understanding and eager and being proactive about things and how you deal with it. And if you want to be a C-level, it's a hard job, right? If you really not really interested or not willing to pay the price, right? Stay away from it. It's really hard, and a lot of hours goes into that, and you need to take a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. First of all, ask yourself the question: Am I willing to pay the price, or am I not going to be in there? Because people are going to depend on me, and it's not about you anymore. It comes from a way of managing to a leadership, because then you are actually the people that you have are your stars. You're not able to be the star anymore yourself. It's your people that you're managing. You need to build them to be a star.
So you're like enabling them, right?
You are an enabler at the end of the day. So the C-level is mainly about how to lead, how to actually be the role model, how to actually provide guidance and a role model that the people can look up to and provide. And a lot, taking a lot of responsibility and putting your head on the chopping board every time there is a decision to be made.
I remember 16 years ago when I first joined the industry, and I felt like a measure of success was managing people. It was like, if I manage people, it makes me more important, because I'm so great. Look, I've got a team of 20, 30 people. And then you actually manage people, and then you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing, right? The hardest thing is managing people. And one of the things I'd say, Kamran, that I've noticed that's quite rare with you is that you tend to hire people based on attitude and hunger. You don't necessarily look at their CV and say, oh, they've come from a great company. And I think, do you think that's contributed to any of your success?
I think so. I think it's about attitude. Anything you can learn, right? And if you're proactive and you're willing to learn, right? You can learn. And everybody is intelligent. You just need to find the right intelligence of that person to use them in the right field. And if you can put them and channel them, and they start to have fun because they are enjoying it and having success, and that motivates them, and it's a catalyst, right?
So look, all C-level, all managers, they always want to hire the best people. Nobody goes out of their way to hire the wrong people. But sometimes you do end up hiring the wrong person.
Yes.
They can be toxic.
Yeah.
It can. What are your views on that? How does managers deal with someone toxic in their team?
I think this is nobody tries to be bad, just for the sake of being bad. Everybody is good in that context. It's just the wrong company, the wrong job, wrong management, wrong time, wrong place to be at that time, right? So it's about finding that right position and right place for those people. And sometimes the answer is sad, because it's not that person that needs to be in the organization, because the wrong place and the wrong situation, right? And then it's not able to contribute because they are not happy. Every day they come to work, they are not happy, right? Just help them and find them what they can do, and then move them towards that direction. It's also part of that leadership, right? Leadership is always not about just pushing people to go within your organization. It's sometimes accepting that person needs to go somewhere else, right? Or that person is better off somewhere different, right? Or something completely different, right?
I sometimes find with organizations that you have a really good person in a really good role, and people automatically assume that because of that, they need to be promoted to manage a team.
Yeah.
And actually it can go so badly wrong because they were so good at their job,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that they were managers. They were just really, and then they hate the job.
Yeah. No, I can give you a good example. My tennis trainer, right? He used to work for me, and he was actually not really good at what he was doing, right? And at that time, he was not a tennis trainer. But he was very good at tennis. And now I'm playing with him, and he actually thanks me every time. And actually, I pay a lot of money for every lesson, because that's my price that you have to pay. And he's the best tennis trainer ever, right? So he was not good at that job. Finding him, that he goes to the right direction is also part of that. And he's thankful.
So was your strategy to soften the blow by saying, look, I don't think that PXP is for you, but how about you teach me tennis? Was that the way you softened the blow?
No, that came a bit later, but we worked through that.
So do you have any regrets? You've been in this organization for some time, almost right from the start. Do you have any regrets?
I think, like everybody else, right? They have a few, but too few to mention. But
you can't mention about me working with you, but any other regrets?
No. But I think it's always about family, right? When you think about the regrets, it's about family matters, right? I've got 2 girls, 25 and 28. They're grown up, and I regret that I did not spend enough time with them when they were small, right? At that time, you think this time will stand, it will go forever, right? And it's not. There is an end to it. So if I can do something different, I will try to spend more quality time with them at that time, right? So that's the only thing that I can think of. The rest is hypothetical, right? The decisions you make, it could have been either way. You don't know if it's wrong or right. If I would have done this, how do you know you would be in a different position, right? But the only thing is just the family. I think that would be the only thing that I can think of.
So, I would like to end on a high note, and what I'd say to you is, you've been in the industry a long time, you've experienced many things, you've met many people. Tell us the funniest story you can tell us about being in the industry.
That one I cannot say.
Is it because Robert's from the audience?
No, but I think it's been fun, right? Just hanging out with the people every night, getting the partners out and talking business and working through the different concept was fun, right? So it was just really fun. But I can tell you a couple of other stories that was not so good, but it's also a learning, right? That gives you the perspective. So back as I was at Europay, one weekend, one programmer did something wrong, and the entire country, when they were actually withdrawing the money, it was not recorded. So Monday in the morning I come, and then it was my department. The CEO calls me up and say, "What the hell? The bank's all calling me, and there is no money." So that was it. That was a very shocking story, and then we lost about back then 10 million euros or something like that over that period, and we had to work 2 weeks to reconstruct each and every transaction from the X25 tracing level and build it up. So that gave me the perspective, anything can go wrong, and be prepared for anything, right? And don't get disheartened or get depressed, because there is always something worse that can happen to you. And if it's not killing you, right, it just makes you stronger.
I think the one thing I can say is when you do work in payments, like no 2 days are the same. Like I remember another situation where was with Kamran. He's always very calm, and we had a situation where this was the time when you could get anonymous cards. You didn't have to KYC them, right? And what it is in the UK they have this thing at the petrol pump, and what it is you can pay at the petrol pump, and it does a 10p authorization. And when it does a 10p authorization, it leaves you on the hook for up to £90. So if you approve the 10 pence transaction, you basically are liable because you've accepted it. So what had happened was, at the time with prepaid, we used to show the authorization of the 10. A lot of credit cards used to not show the authorization. What they would do is change the available balance. So because we were showing them and saying, oh, there's a 10p authorization, criminals started to see, oh, this is interesting. I see the actual transaction happening the later day. So we had a situation where over a weekend, it was very well planned in East London. I mean, I'm sure it was because, that's where you live, maybe it was the petrol station next to you. And what they did was they had it all planned. They went with vans, lorries, with special tanks. And what they were doing was basically for £1,000 worth of petrol, they were paying £1 for it. And they did this with something like maybe 100 prepaid cards. And it happened over a bank holiday weekend, and it was just like, oh my God, right? Now most people would have lost their job for that. You came in, you were very calm, and we just dealt with it. But the challenges are always there, and you see new things.
Yeah, I agree.
So just to close, any words of advice for people that are starting in industry or early in the journey in the industry? What advice would you give them to stay in industry as long as you, without passing away?
You pass away at some point, right? So you cannot, it's inevitable. But I think the main point is we are going so fast, right? And the thing is understanding the space, learning every day, being proactive about this space. It's not something that really interests you, learning and being proactive and just being at the edge of it, right? It's difficult because at some point you lose it, right? So it's something that you need to be actually quite proactive and dynamic about it, right? And you need to like it, learn it, right? And should be fun doing it and not a burden. So I think that's the main thing. And don't get disheartened if you don't understand it or you don't know it the first time. Always use the networks. There's multiple networks that you can use and access. And find a mentor that can help you through your journey. It's always helpful to have a mentor.
Great, thank you. I don't know, Andrew, if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect opportunity. I have a question, but before I do that, any questions for Kamran or Suresh? Okay, one very quick one, because Lily's given me that stare that says, if you don't finish, you're going to be the next hummus being exported or imported. Kamran, very quickly, thank you, by the way. One of the challenges that I see is that in my first job, I stayed for 22 years, the next job 10 years. But on average, when I look on LinkedIn, nobody seems to stay for more than 2 years now. So how do you motivate people that are coming, wanting to learn, wanting to excel, but they're probably not going to be there in 5 years' time? Is there a different way of leading or managing them?
I think it's about the people, right? And making sure that they get what they need in that job, right? And for me, is anybody coming to us is about learning and being a part of the team. You don't expect them, you know, as long as it's right, they stay with you and you know, help you in this journey. And anybody leaving you, I know, from your organization is not making your organization necessarily weaker. It just makes your network stronger, because those who have learned the trade from you and your school of doing what you're doing are just going to be extending your network. I think just help them to grow and help them to that, and don't think about, they're going to leave me in 2 years. Maybe they leave in 2 years, but that's a positive thing, because that's going to just strengthen your network. Just treat them right and fairly. Otherwise, you're not going to have the benefit out of it.
I think people leave because they don't see progression. You know, I think that if they see that, it's very hard for someone that's coming very junior to then have them as CEO of a company, because the company sees them that way. And I think, Kamran, you've got some great examples of people that joined you at a very junior level, and they went on to become COO.
Yeah, COOs, CEOs, right? And then they,
I mean, within your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we work on the talents internally, and we believe that the people need to grow within the organization. And that motivates us. You know, we have a very high rate of internal promotions rather than going outside and trying to find a big hitter and bringing them on board, right? We believe in our talent inside the company.
All right. Listen, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen.